Picture this, a quiet courtroom in Germany, March 6, 1981. The rain taps lightly on the windows of the courthouse. A mother, wearing a dark coat, walks steadily towards the defendant's bench. She reaches into her purse, pulls out a pistol, and fires 7 shots. Six bullets hit the man in front of her. He collapses to the ground, but the woman doesn't run. She doesn't scream. She lowers the weapon, her voice barely a whisper. "I did it for you, Anna." This wasn't a Hollywood blockbuster or a made-up story for shock value. This was real. The woman was Marianne Bachmeier. The man she killed, Klaus Grabowski. The man who had murdered her 7-year-old daughter, Anna. What unfolded in that courtroom sent shockwaves through Germany and the world. To understand what drove a mother to carry out such an act in front of a judge and jury, we must go back to where it all began. Marianne Bachmeier was born on June 3rd, 1950, in a small German town called Sarstedt. Her childhood was far from peaceful. Her father, once a soldier, returned from the war, a broken, violent alcoholic. Her parents eventually divorced, but life with her mother and stepfather wasn't much better. Marianne ran away, was kicked out of the house, and by the age of 16, she was already pregnant. That child was given up for adoption. At 18, she became pregnant again. Same result, 2 children, both taken from her. By the time she was 22, Marianne had found a job as a barmaid at a local restaurant in Lübeck called Tipasa. It was there that she met a man named Christian Berthold, and despite the turbulence of their relationship, she found something she had long been missing, a sense of family. In 1972, Marianne gave birth to a daughter, Anna. For Marianne, Anna was her 3rd child, but her first real chance at being a mother, and she loved her fiercely. Life, however, was far from easy. The pressures of single motherhood and the long hours at the bar made it difficult to balance work and family. Anna was bright, curious, and independent, perhaps too independent for a 7-year-old. While her mother worked late nights, she would often wander the neighbourhood alone. On May 5th, 1980, Marianne and Anna had an argument. It was a typical mother-daughter dispute. Anna wanted to skip school, and Marianne refused. Little did they know, it would be their last conversation. That morning, Anna left the house, intending to visit a friend, but she never arrived. That night, Marianne reported her missing. The frantic search for Anna began. The very next day, police made a harrowing discovery. Anna's lifeless body was found stuffed inside a cardboard box near a canal. The cause of death, she had been strangled with a pair of her killer's fiancé's stockings. And who was the man responsible for this monstrous act? Klaus Grabowski, a 35-year-old man with a disturbing past. A man who had been convicted twice before for similar crimes. Despite being known to the system as a dangerous sexual predator, Klaus Grabowski managed to slip through the cracks. The authorities knew of his past. He was supposed to be monitored, but there he was, living a few streets away from Anna's home. The investigation revealed that Grabowski lured Anna into his home, sexually abused her, and when he feared she might expose his heinous acts, he murdered her. But it didn't end there. It wasn't enough for Klaus Grabowski to kill a defenseless little girl. He had to add insult to injury, to add a layer of horror and disrespect. He had the audacity to lie to the police, claiming that Anna had tried to blackmail him. A grotesque lie, as if a 7-year-old child could even grasp such a concept, let alone act on it. It wasn't just murder, it was a grotesque attempt to protect himself and shift the blame onto his victim, even in death. Marianne Bachmeier was shattered, her world turned upside down by the loss of her precious daughter. She couldn't bring herself to follow the traditional funeral customs, opting instead to play Pink Floyd's music because that's what Anna loved. It was a powerful, defiant act, a refusal to bow to convention, but the wound refused to heal. The pain festered, consuming Marianne from within, and then came the trial. A trial that was supposed to provide justice, but only served to add salt to her wounds. In early 1981, Marianne Bachmeier sat front row at the trial of Klaus Grabowski, forced to listen as he portrayed her little girl, Anna, as a manipulative child, as if a 7-year-old could manipulate a fully grown man with a criminal history, as if Anna had somehow brought this upon herself, as if she was the guilty party. That morning, March 6th, 1981, Marianne entered the courtroom with a small pistol hidden in her handbag, a .22 caliber Beretta, illegally obtained days earlier. She sat quietly, waiting for the perfect moment. As Klaus Grabowski was escorted into the courtroom through a side door, oblivious to the impending fate that awaited him, Marianne stood, and in a moment of seething, unbridled rage, she pulled the gun from her purse. She fired once, twice, 3 times, 7 shots in total. 6 of them hit their target, most of them to his back. In a matter of seconds, the man who had taken her daughter's life was dead. The shockwaves of this act reverberated throughout Germany and beyond. Marianne Bachmeier had just taken justice into her own. The aftermath of the shooting was utter pandemonium. People screamed, chaos reigned, and yet Marianne remained calm, serene even, as she placed the gun down and surrendered quietly. Later, Marianne would tell reporters in a voice that betrayed not a shred of doubt, "I wanted to kill him. I hope he's dead." Her diary entry on that day would read, "I did it for you, Anna." And next to these words, she drew 7 hearts, one for each year of her daughter's short, beautiful life. The public's reaction was swift and starkly polarized. On one side were those who condemned her actions, painting Marianne Bachmeier as a cold-blooded murderer. But for every voice decrying her actions, there were just as many, if not more, hailing her as a hero. Yet, the law could not overlook her actions. Instead of being commended for saving the state thousands of dollars that would have been spent feeding the man in prison, Marianne was punished for her actions. Marianne Bachmeier stood before the court facing the weight of a murder charge and unlawful possession of a firearm. The prosecution was determined to prove that her actions were planned and calculated. They presented evidence of the gun being brought to court on several occasions, and even mentioned Marianne's practice sessions with the weapon in the basement of her workplace, trying to establish that she knew exactly what she was going to do. On the other hand, the defense team argued that Marianne's actions were not those of a criminal mastermind, but those of a mother broken by unimaginable pain and trauma. The court took 2 years to reach their verdict, and it was not murder, but manslaughter. Marianne was sentenced to 6 years in prison, but served only 3 before being released. Following her release from prison, Marianne opted for a more private life. She married a German professor and moved abroad, living in Nigeria and Sicily. She kept herself away from the media limelight, but in 1994, she published a book. Despite her attempts to leave the trauma behind, it remained a part of her. And in 1996, Marianne was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She made the decision to return to Germany for her final days and allowed cameras to document her last weeks. Marianne was only 46 years old when she passed away, reuniting with her beloved daughter, Anna, in death. The tragic story of Marianne Bachmeier remains a chilling reminder of what a grieving parent might do when the justice system fails to deliver justice for their child. While you may not have children, it's natural to imagine oneself in her shoes and wonder if your actions would be any different. Indeed, it's difficult to blame Marianne for taking matters into her own hands when all other avenues seem to have failed her. The incident involving Marianne Bachmeier has sparked a fierce debate about justice and morality, with some arguing that she should have let the courts decide Grabowski's fate, while others contend that the courts had already failed twice and that she was justified in taking matters into her own hands. The tragedy that unfolded in that courtroom remains as haunting and powerful as the day it happened. The story of Marianne Bachmeier has left many grappling with difficult questions about justice and morality. If you are captivated by this story and want to explore more powerful, true tales that challenge our notions of justice, morality, and humanity, make sure to follow and engage with this channel.